Top of the afternoon to y'all. Broadcasting live again from, a sunnier United Kingdom. Less like November and more like May. Anyway, it is Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. Every day is an adventure. Every single day. Just wait and see if anybody's showing up. So I'm not just talking to myself here in the screen. Okay, maybe this isn't going to happen today. Oh well, it's Terrific Tuesday, or is it Taco Tuesday? Well, gosh, this will be the first time I may cancel a coffee break live update here on Fudgebook. Maybe the weather is so good where you are that you don't even want to stay online right now. Well, that would be amazing. Oh, there's somebody. Welcome. Welcome to the Coffee Break live update. Oh, it's Lou. Hi, Lou. So the theme for today is not on the topic everybody is talking about. But I'd like to address it. In fact, I'm going to share on my timeline a 10-minute video that Hassan Minhaj of the Netflix series Patriot Act did about George Floyd, what's going on in Minneapolis, what's going on all across the United States, all across the world, and around black injustice, racial injustice, violence, and so forth. But I detect something much deeper at work here than just, sociological and political issues or influences. And I always have. There's always a deeper meaning to all sorts of the things that we call the phenomena or the events in our life and in the world. But I have been kind of a dog with a bone for the last 3 months under lockdown, trying to get deeper and deeper into understanding or investigating various things having to do with AI, technology, human consciousness, the effects of the same on human consciousness, or in concert with it. And I'm drawing some very strong and probably controversial conclusions around it. Excuse me. Need some of that coffee. So, a lot of my research has been around things like surveillance capitalism and having to do with how big tech, i.e. the big four, have been monetizing or creating a surveillance society of their own. And so good at it. In fact, governments are trying to hire their expertise elsewhere for their own purposes. So the collusion between big tech and government has just, been there for a long time, but it's becoming more and more embedded. In fact, the governments are more or less marching to the tune of big tech rather than the other way around. The other thing is the influence that they can extend through platforms like we are sharing on right now, to influence people's opinions, beliefs, buying habits, and so forth. And I'm not going to address that today, although that is part of it. But it comes down to a more fundamental thing. It comes down to identity. So just about an hour ago, I posted using not somebody else's, but basically a generic avatar, Facebook avatar, to describe or to at least illustrate the fact that whether we realize it or not, the machine is going inside of us. The whole electromagnetic reality, what they call augmented reality, virtual reality, avatars, online life. It's not that we're just seduced constantly into this medium, it is becoming part of us, all right? And it happens at a cost that we don't recognize. And I think part of what we're seeing with the violence and the outrage is due to the fact that this type of merging, or this type of inhumane infusing itself into the human. Because let's be honest, technology is completely soulless. You know, you can praise your wonderful Apple, iMac or whatever, your MacBook, and we can write all kinds of praise about, this software and that app and everything else, and what this will do and what that will do, and it won't know the difference. It has no sense of appreciation. It has no empathy. It doesn't care. But we imbue it anthropomorphologically. We imbue it with the qualities that we would like to think that it might have. Now, it's not a completely inanimate thing, technology. Somewhere at the core of every molecule and every atom is the God spark, is the creative consciousness of Source. And it can go either way. It can be our servant, or it can be our master, just like a lot of other situations. But we don't realize, over the last 15, 18 years, we don't realize how much it has impacted human consciousness and split us off from the soul. Split us off from empathy. Split us off from seeing others as we are. And this isn't just a product of the Industrial Revolution. It's not just a product of the technological revolution, and it's not going to be the final product of the digital age or revolution, the information age. And so I'm moved to read a section of a book that is sort of my next step, and it's based on the philosophies of Martin Heidegger, who is a German philosopher, and he had an idea or a concept called Gestell, and Gestell was called, he called it the rule of Gestell. And the paragraph in this current book I'm reading, which I quoted from this morning when I posted about the Go Live, is the relationship or the conflict between technology and the soul. It is quite possible that those who embrace the merger with machines may be endowed with apparent enhancement of their cognitive powers. But this enhancement will be technological, not a moral or spiritual achievement. And as such, it is more likely to confine them within what Martin Heidegger called the rule of Gestell than open them up to genuine awareness of spiritual realms. Technological enhancement is an invitation to the inhuman to take up residence within ourselves, within the soul. Those who invite the inhuman to dwell within them take the risk, to use Martin Heidegger's words, of being denied the possibility to enter a more original revealing and unable to respond to the call of a more primal truth. They risk severing themselves from the very essence of what it means to be human. This has concerned me for some time. When I was walking around doing channeling work in the early 2000s, and everybody was starting to get mobile phones, cell phones, I was fascinated. I was good with computers, and I was good with point-of-sale terminals. I used to sell them and install them and train people on them back in the 80s. I've always been good with radio. I've always been great with guitar amplifiers and guitar electronics, being a musician and a guitarist. I love that stuff. But what we're entering into, what we're engaging with since the mid-90s is completely new thing. It's like the description in the book of an Australian Aboriginal. First time he ever encountered a motor car, he fell down in the road in a paroxysm of fear and died right there in the road because he encountered a motor car, something he had never ever in his wildest dreams imagined he would ever encounter. He didn't know what it was. But it killed him. He died because of the fright that it gave him. It was so alien. So, movies like The Matrix, movies like The 13th Floor, the series Black Mirror on HBO by Charlie Brooker, these things are trying to warn us They're trying to alert us to the fact that the deeper and the more dependent we become on the machine, the more we are becoming the machine, the more and more we are inviting that inhuman, cold, analytical, unfeeling aspect into our own being, then we cut off from that empathy, we cut off from that sensitivity, we cut off from ourselves. And that's what I feel also makes it possible for a police officer to kneel on the neck of a incapacitated human being, doesn't matter what color, and snuff out their life. You could say he's sociopathic, he's psychopathic, it's the training program, it's the militarization of the police. But that all stems from the same thing, don't you see? It all stems from this disconnect that we have come to accept and even laud as part of our modern life, our modern experience. Without, unquestioningly, seemingly unquestioningly. So when this phenomenon started about a month ago, or maybe it was not even that long, Facebook avatars, that's what it's describing, is this merging with machine consciousness and giving over your inherent God-given and goddess-divined self and trading it for a two-dimensional artificial identity? Is that what we really want? Or, as Russell Crowe said, yelled, screaming to the crowd in the Colosseum, are you not entertained? In the movie Gladiator. So we're all like, right now, we all are a Maximus standing on the floor of the Colosseum and wondering from which direction will we have to defend ourselves again? Because this is a time, an era, I think the astrology is showing us that we have to examine our motives around technology. Uranus and Taurus, it's like, okay, Uranus is Mr. Techno, yeah, okay, fine. However, grounding it into the earth plane can mean one of two polarities. You're bringing the technological and merging it with the flesh, i.e. the Silicon Valley version of transhumanism, or you are rejecting it and opting for the organic soul within. Hi, Ollie. Hi there, Brenda. Hi, Michael. Lovely to see you here. Hi, Misha. So my message is very, very heartfelt around this situation, is that we will never understand nor react responsibly or clearly to the events that happened in Minneapolis, or anywhere for that matter, unless we completely and totally take the time necessary to devote to our humanness, to go within, yes, and to connect with nature. Absolutely, because this is the environment, this is the context we were natively born into and we are from. We weren't natively born into an artificial intelligence context. That has only come about recently in the last, well, if you start with the radio, or start with telegraph, all the way back to the 1860s, so what's that, 150 years? Compared to how long we've been around as biological, spiritual creatures, much, much longer. Much, much longer. Millions of years. So, are we going to sell out our soul for convenience and temporary artificial thrills and spills? Are we going to become a virtual species, the first one perhaps in all of the history of the universe? And whither goes us in that situation? Because the more we get embedded by the machine and the more that we embed ourselves into the machine, the less we are paying attention to what's out there on the surface of the planet. But that's what exactly has been happening for the last 60, 70 years. Is because of our neglect, because of our disconnect, we are seeing wholesale extermination of species. We're seeing ecological catastrophic effects. In other words, the inhuman is doing a real good job through us to trash the environment so that it can inhabit one that is completely sterile and completely without life, and completely without any access to spiritual dimensions. And I don't think that's what we are, and I don't think that's what we want. I certainly don't. So, you know, I feel that we could have a coexistence with computers, but I think the idea of the wireless aspect of it has to go. It has to be brought into our control. It has to be brought under our jurisdiction. Even on a platform like this, or YouTube, or you know, Instagram, the dialogue and the algorithms are all controlled by a private company, a private corporation that has one thing in common, all of them do, is the profit motive. So to get us to think the way they want us to think, to get us to behave the way they want us to behave, is only going to lead to an ecological and evolutionary dead end. Yes, it does feel like a movie. Thank you for commenting that way. So if all of the computers were hardwired, i.e. running fiber optics and everything like this, we would be less impacted. Not just biologically, but energetically and at a soul level, at a mental level. But because the context is controlled, and because the context is determined and out of your control, is determined by a very small number of people for their own personal gain, really, then you have a situation. Well, it's according to their ideology. They want to remake the Earth into a completely smart planet, all right? This is the whole reason for 5G and Internet of Things, kids. Question is, are you going to consent to it, or are you going to go along with it? I know some of you probably in this audience, you know, if I would have said, are you going to get that vaccination for COVID-19 with the tracking whatever in it? No, I don't think so. But if I'd said, you know, are you going to not buy that new iPhone? Are you going to not buy that new router? You'd probably stop and think twice. Somebody else's comment here, I think healing frequencies and sound light should be utilized also with... No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Because of the nature of the medium itself. I'm sorry, Ellie, it doesn't work. Okay? What nobody's made or connected the dots around is that maybe the situation we find ourselves in politically, sociologically, economically, and otherwise, and the environment, isn't just because of our bad behavior, but maybe things like pandemics and chronic disease, as I had mentioned weeks ago, are the result of our tampering with the Earth's electromagnetic field through our technology. In 1860, the 26th leading cause of death was heart disease, behind accidental drowning. That is a fact. That's impossible. No person can control the planet. You'd be mad to think you can. No, we're not trying to control the planet, but some people want it. Some people definitely are endeavored to do that. That's the whole reason for the rollout of FIVEGEE. I'm not going to say it on live. I don't end up in Facebook jail for 3 days again. But this is what's causing the madness, and we don't see it. We're right in the fishbowl, and we don't see it. We don't hear it. We're out here. We're sitting here in this dialogue in cyberspace. You might as well say the lower astral realm. And you won't know what the truth is until you take a complete sabbatical from this medium and this context. Psychologist C.G. Jung had a winter or summer retreat, Bollinger, Germany. There was no running water, there was no electricity, there was no lighting, there was no heat. There was a supply of kerosene lanterns, a fireplace, and that was it. Somebody from the 13th century could have walked into that house and been perfectly at home. And there was no telephone. He had to stay away from all that because it was the only place in which he could find his connection to the deep within, was being in nature and away from all that stuff. Most people these days don't even know what that feels like. So we're in the madness, and we have ingested it. It's part of us. It's like what happened in the Matrix. You know, a normal, regular guy on the street, all of a sudden he starts morphing and he turns into one of the agents. That's what's happening to the whole planet, and that's why people are reacting and acting the way they are. Okay? And why it gets crazier and the chaos gets more incomprehensible. Thank you, Suzanne. You clarified that. Appreciate it. Some people think they can control the whole planet. 100 years ago, not possible. Today, feasible. Look at China. Sorry, but it is feasible. We are in the minority in this little discussion room. We are in the minority at the moment. You know, if you had to tell people that we would have to change the actual technology or reorient our relationship with it in order to affect greater economic, social, political change, the resistance would be huge. It's not just the environmental damage, the rare earth minerals being mined in the Republic of the Congo and other parts of Asia are doing to the ecology, not to mention the poor kids who are forced to mine this stuff so they can eke out a living for them and their family. It's what's happening to our relationship to nature and the earth and our absolute unbridled greed that is destroying not only our habitat and other species, but our own self-respect and our own ability to connect with one another authentically. So I recommend what? What is the next move? I'm not quite sure yet, but I think the call of Pluto and Capricorn is that any form of toxicity, any form, and especially this one, needs to be very, very thoroughly examined and ruled on. Is it good for us? Is it useful? Or does it have too much of a cost, too much of a price tag attached to it? Is it going to cost our souls? Is it going to cost us our planetary habitat? I know it sounds very grave, but I don't think we have a lot of time to deal with this. 10 years, tops. We can change our consciousness, and that can help, but you cannot force it on the collective. I'm sorry to say. There will be disruptions. There will be disruptions. And that is part of the acceptance of the process. Nothing essentially is wrong with the process. But can you allow it to be what it is and not try to change it when it does happen, when this happens, when that happens? We haven't even entered into the full tilt boogie of the Pluto return of the United States. 2022, 2023, you know, we're just had the can opener back in June, or excuse me, in January. We had the can opener of Saturn and Pluto meeting in Capricorn. That was the can opener. That was the starting gun. It's not over. So when we change our consciousness, it has to be with the idea that we don't really need to externalize our natural, native, inherent spiritual gifts into our environment in order to understand what they are. We don't need to create an internet anymore once we understand the reality of our being connected through clairaudience, telepathy, morphogenetic resonance. If you don't know what morphogenetic resonance is, I recommend you watch Rupert Sheldrake and on his infamously banned TED Talk on YouTube, which you can still find now. He was sort of redeemed out of the memory hole. So morphogenetic resonance is the ability to symbiotically coexist with an environment because you don't see yourself as separate from it. But, you know, the Industrial Revolution thought otherwise. We had to conquer the planet and use it for our own use, uses and devices. Yes, we have another comment. Is that comment complete? I'm not sure, Jillian. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can get a dumb phone and still go onto your computer, hardwired into your router with an Ethernet cable. You don't have to have wireless in your home. But this is the trouble with the previous person who was talking about, what was it? Something about 5G. Oop, I said it. Please don't throw me in jail. All of this stuff, all these wireless things that the internet and the Internet of Things run on penetrates everything, right? You know, 3G, 4G, all of the wireless mobile data stuff penetrates walls, it penetrates trees, it penetrates our bodies, it penetrates just about anything you can think of, unless you're at the back end of a grocery store and wondering why you can't get signal. Interference from the fluorescent lights, probably. But 5G, FIVE, operates on a completely different principle. It can't go very far through things, especially wet, living, biological things like trees and leaves. But it can go fairly deep, millimeters deep, into the fascia of your skin. Because why? Because you're made up of water. And you are a receiving, sending antenna. Your whole body and your whole consciousness is a radio frequency smorgasbord. So, non-tech comms are increasing. Can you elaborate on that, dear Jillian? I appreciate that. I'm interested. Non-tech comms are increasing. You mean telepathy? Do you mean resonance, empathy? I'm just curious. So when it comes down to it, the will to will, which is slowly being eroded by surveillance capitalism, people taking away choice without us even realizing it and making us behave or respond in particular ways, whether it's voting or whether it's shopping or deciding on things or having an opinion about anything. You can choose, you can will to not participate with it. You can will to will and find workarounds, develop workarounds, be creative to dealing with the machines in the way that you need them to work for you. One of the other ways, mentioned like raising our consciousness, we'll get involved with creative arts, actually play a musical instrument, actually paint, finger paint if you don't know how to paint, actually work in the garden, which is what I've been doing all day. This is why I didn't dress up for the event. Put on a hat. I didn't dress up for this event. I came, dressed down because I've been out working. You have to find your organic reality within you. You got to find God Goddess within you, yes, but also do not exclude it from nature. Do not exclude it from your surroundings. Get in touch with your senses and you'll come to your senses. All right? Aha, good one. Yes, somebody's wearing a shungite pendant. Quite a bit, especially on your person, but I also put them on the phones and on the devices themselves, and especially on the router. So I'm rambling all over on this because I'm passionate. When I'm passionate about something, I'll just sit there and fish, improv all the way. I'll just fish for things. The book I'm quoting from, by the way, is it's the second part. The first part that he wrote about this particular topic, and who I'm referring to is Jeremy Naydler, is In the Shadow of the Machine, which came out in 2018, the prehistory of the computer and the evolution of consciousness. By the way, if you don't know who Jeremy Naydler is, he is a very amazing individual, actually. He's a doctorate in theology and religious studies. He's a philosopher, cultural historian, and gardener who lives and works in Oxford, England. So this is the book. It is called The Struggle for a Human Future. 5G, Fivegee, Augmented Reality and the Internet of Things, and it's published by Temple Lodge. Came out just about a month ago. It's amazing how that book, Franklin Fleur's World Without Mind, and Dr. Shoshana Zuboff's Surveillance Capitalism all were in the works for the last 2 to 3 years. And they all released between December of 2019, when COVID-19, when coronavirus first appeared in Wuhan after that eclipse. And then now, it's like in the space of 4.5, 5 months, this new material has come out into the collective consciousness. Hello, Ellen. Hello, Elaine. So I think that's about it. I've been on about half an hour. I don't know what else to say except that choose you. Choose spirit. Choose nature. There will be ways to discover, I think, if we are deciding to hang on to our spiritual identity, to our soul, to what makes us intrinsically human, over and above all the flashing lights and wonderful gadgetry, the magic show, then we will recover the real magic. We'll recover the real magic of who we are. We will remember that we can create anything we want, and I think we can create something darn sight better than what Silicon Valley has in mind, what the transhumanists have in mind. But like anything, especially this stuff, it's so highly addictive that people will fight to defend it and keep it. And that is where we have to be prepared to defend our own perspective, our own philosophy. Let's debate. Let's converse. Let's try to connect and not judge another. But by the very nature of this medium, people are unhinged from their essential selves to some extent, greater or larger, and they will react. They will fight to defend their dependency. They will fight to defend their ideology. And that form of, that fight or that defense usually takes a form of aggression. And if you're not prepared, then it'll just wash over you like a tidal wave. Oh, somebody contributed, somebody's name, Amro Othman. Tell me more, or leave it in the comments. So I'm going to bring it to a conclusion here. There'll be a part 2 on Thursday, and I'll go more specific as to mitigation, all right? How to mitigate, how to help create clear space, enough clear space around you so that you can really know what's what with yourself and with spirit and with nature, with the spirit of nature. And spirit is the same thing, source. Maybe for some of us it means living off grid and coming out and doing public talks or doing workshops or having a retreat center or something like that. I think it'll eventually have to go back to that, where we have that human contact, we have that ability to sit around and tell stories, as we did hundreds of thousands of years ago in caves. To tell those stories, to share those experiences. So we want the experience of love. We want the experience of everything's going to be okay, and we want the experience of, everybody we love is going to be okay. And with everything that's going on right now, I have to, applaud those who have stood up to the machine of the old world patriarchy and ideology and done something. In fact, done amazing things over the last 2 weeks. The idea of a United States city's police department being completely dismantled is absolutely unprecedented. Exactly, my friend. Somebody saying they will fight to defend their ignorance. Or as Morpheus said, they are so inculcated and so dependent upon the system, they will fight for it. But these are the very minds that we're endeavoring to free, isn't it? And the only way we can free them is by setting a good example and educating and debating if need be, but not for the sake of winning, but for the sake of our own souls and our own satisfaction, that we have done all that we can do. And let it go and leave it at that. So, that's it for today's episode. To be continued on Thursday, 3 p.m. British Summer Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight, and 7 a.m. out there on the west coast of the United States. I thank you all for staying in there, hanging in there, and giving me your attention and appreciating very much your comments. I do very much appreciate your comments and contributions. If you have any questions or want to know more about kind of what this is all about, and where is it going, and what do we do about it, or if you want some concrete guidance and mentoring around anything that's coming up for you at this time in these strange days that we live in, please get in touch. You can PM me or you can contact me at isaac@isaacgeorge.com. All right? Okay, so I'm going to be also mentioning some special things coming up on Thursday that I'm going to be offering. So take care of yourselves. Spend as much time offline or out of the range of Wi-Fi as you possibly can. Get out for a walk. Get out, where there are no power lines if you can, and find out what it was like to be a child of nature again. And have fun. Check out stuff. Be still. Pay attention. Something really interesting might happen. Somebody might be talking to you in a low whisper. All right. Till then, take care and blessings on your journey.